Welcome! You made it to the last video of the Rural 2.0 training founded by Erasmus+. Today we'll go through the key dimensions of youth leadership, what it truly means, why participation often fails, how leadership can be understood as a collective practice, what pathways lead to lasting influence, and how to build systems that sustain youth engagement over time. This video moves beyond traditional notions of titles and authority to examine how young people can exercise meaningful influence today. We will address structural barriers like short-term project cycles, burnout, and tokenism, while offering a relational understanding of leadership as something collective and practiced among peers. Globally, young people are already leading, mobilizing around climate justice, democratic reform, and social equity. Yet their influence is often constrained by structural barriers rather than a lack of motivation or talent. A central challenge is the gap between formal mechanisms of youth engagement and actual decision-making power. UNESCO's Lead with Youth report found that only 1 in 3 countries have laws formalizing youth engagement in education decision-making. Even where structures exist, only 20% of youth organizations report feeling they are genuinely collaborating as valued partners in policy shaping. Young people are invited to consultations and workshops, but their participation rarely translates into real influence. Despite these barriers, research points to what works. Circle at Tufts University found that youth-led programs increase confidence in 16 civic and leadership competencies, with relationship building and direct funding emerging as critical success factors. A practical example: USAID's Youth Power Learning Network connected over 5,000 youth practitioners. By redesigning its structure to include communities of practice, mentorship, and shared leadership, the network achieved 35% increase in engagement. The current landscape is marked by a paradox. Young people are more active and capable than ever, yet systematic issues prevent lasting impact. But proven solutions exist. We can move beyond asking young people to simply participate and instead focus on building systems where their leadership is sustained and supported. Youth leadership is not something that only happens in the future. It's something that young people can practice today. Leadership is often confused with holding a title or a formal position of authority. Real power is about being able to influence decisions, shape outcomes, and make a difference in your community, even without an official role. Many young people already exercise this informal power when they mobilize peers, raise important issues, or steer conversations. Not all power is visible. Some is obvious, like voting or making official decisions, but much is invisible. It determines who gets to speak, whose ideas are taken seriously, and which issues matter. Often young people are excluded not by laws, but by these invisible dynamics. Society often frames young people as leaders of tomorrow. While this sounds positive, it has an effect of delaying responsibility and real influence, keeping youth on the sidelines. Participation alone is not enough. Being invited to a consultation or workshop does not guarantee impact. True youth leadership means helping shape decisions, influence outcomes, and see your contributions make a difference. Democracy is always unfinished. Young people play a vital role in keeping it relevant and responsive by bringing fresh perspectives, challenging outdated systems, and ensuring decisions reflect the diversity of experiences in society. When youth are excluded, systems lose legitimacy, trust, and the ability to respond to change. Meaningful leadership involves being able to include early, having clear responsibilities, and seeing your work create real impact. The key takeaway: leadership is not a future promise. It's something to claim and practice now. Young people need to understand how power works, question whether participation is meaningful, and distinguish between being invited to the table and having a real say. Youth participation often starts with energy, enthusiasm, and high expectations, but too frequently ends in disengagement, frustration, or abandoned potential. One main reason: short-term project cycles. Many youth programs run on grants lasting only 6 to 18 months. By the time trust has been built, skills have been developed, and participants feel capable, the project ends and so does the support. This leads to a start-stop syndrome. The constant cycling between new initiatives prevents continuity. knowledge, relationships, and momentum are lost repeatedly. Young people start over instead of building on experience. Another major challenge is burnout. Young people are often expected to contribute significant emotional or practical labor without compensation, clear support structures, or visible pathways for their work to make an impact. Tokenism also limits participation. Being included for diversity without real decision-making power reduces youth involvement to validation rather than influence. This is also compounded by elite reproduction, where participation opportunities repeatedly go to those with existing time, connections, and resources, leaving out youth from marginalized or rural backgrounds. As a result, the same few young people cycle through multiple representative roles, while others never get a chance to participate meaningfully. Key takeaway: failure is rarely about lack of motivation or talent among youth. Instead, it stems from poorly designed systems, short-term thinking, and inequitable structures. Leadership is often imagined as something held by one person, the strongest, most confident, or most experienced. But leadership is not a position. It is a practice that happens between people. Instead of focusing on a single leader, it's more useful to understand leadership as something collective, relational, and constantly developing over time. In this perspective, leadership is distributed. It does not sit at the top, but exists across a group or network. Different people take the lead at different moments, depending on skills, experience, or the situation. This shifts the focus from who is in charge to how are we working together and who can step forward here. This connects to the difference between positional and developmental leadership. Traditional models focus on roles and titles. A developmental approach focuses on growth. How can people build the ability to take responsibility, make decisions, and support others over time? Leadership becomes something you learn through experience, not something you are simply given. A key part is collective responsibility. Instead of one person carrying the pressure and risking burnout, responsibility is shared. This creates stronger, more resilient groups where people are engaged and capable of stepping in. Real leadership depends on legitimacy from below. It comes from trust, respect, and recognition within a group or community, not just from being appointed by an institution or a given title. To navigate this, young people need leadership literacy, the ability to recognize when leadership is happening, understand who is included or excluded, and to see how decisions are actually made. This also means being able to step in, support others, and challenge situations where leadership is concentrated or unfair. Key takeaway: you do not need a title to lead. Leadership is something that you grow into by working with others, sharing power, and taking responsibility together. It's not about standing above others, but about building something with them. Youth participation should not be an end in itself. It should open up pathways to real opportunities, influence, and long-term roles. Too often, young people are encouraged to engage without clear connections to what comes next. Civic pathways are often the first step. Through community projects, local organizations, or activism, young people can move into sustained roles such as community leaders, board members, or policy contributors. Political pathways can emerge, from participating in youth councils to working on campaigns, advising decision makers, or even running for office. However, these opportunities are not always open or transparent. Informal networks, connections, and insider knowledge often determine who gets access. Participation also creates professional pathways. Skills like project management, facilitation, communication, and public speaking are highly valued in the job market. However, these skills are often invisible or not formally recognized, especially for young people without academic backgrounds. Capable and experienced youth struggle to turn participation into employment without mentorship, recognition, or connections. Another challenge, avoiding extraction. Sometimes organizations benefit from young people's time, energy, and stories without offering real opportunities in return. A strong pathway is reciprocal. When young people contribute, they also gain skills, access, and networks that support their growth. Key takeaway: participation should lead somewhere. To turn engagement into lasting influence, young people need to understand how pathways work, where barriers are, and how to recognize when an opportunity is actually exploitation. Youth leadership is sustained through relationships, support systems, and ongoing connections. Mentorship and networks are not optional or nice to have. They are essential mechanisms through which knowledge, trust, and opportunities are shared. Peer-to-peer mentorship is one important form. Young people learn from others with similar experiences. These relationships provide honest feedback, solidarity, and practical guidance based on shared realities. Intergenerational mentorship connects young people with more experienced leaders who can offer perspective, open doors, and provide protection in formal or institutional spaces. The goal is reciprocity, not dependency. Beyond individual relationships, leadership is sustained through network-based support. This means access to a wider web of connections, not just a single mentor. Strong networks allow access to different types of knowledge, opportunities, and support over time. Learning how to build, maintain, and contribute to networks is a key leadership skill in itself. Peer learning as leadership reproduction. When young people share knowledge, support each other, and bring others to the process, leadership expands and becomes more inclusive. Knowledge is distributed, not concentrated. A major challenge is the infrastructure gap. Many youth initiatives focus on training individuals, but fail to build ongoing support systems like peer groups, mentorship structures, or alumni networks. Without these, learning is lost. Key takeaway: no one leads alone. Mentorship and networks are the foundation that makes leadership sustainable. Investing in relationships and supporting others and staying connected is core to how leadership actually works and continues over time. Youth leadership must be sustained over time, across generations, and within different contexts. This means moving beyond individual experiences and thinking how to build systems that last. Many risks we discussed, like tokenism, burnout, and elite reproduction, are not just problems. They are signs of weak system design. When young people are included without influence, overloaded without support, or when opportunities go to the same few, the system is not fair, inclusive, or sustainable. Strong youth leadership systems are built around key principles. Continuity, where participation does not end when a project finishes. Real influence, where young people shape decisions, not just contribute to ideas, and clear pathways, where participants grow into roles with more responsibility over time. Also, access. Opportunities are open to diverse groups, not just those with resources or connections. And support systems, mentorship, and networks help individuals continue engagement. To apply this, young people need leadership literacy, the ability to evaluate whether a participation space is meaningful. Ask critical questions. Who has real power here? What happens after participation ends? Who is included and who is missing? What continues over time and what disappears? These questions help move from simply taking part to actively assessing and improving initiatives. Sustainability also depends on building continuity across generations. This includes alumni structures, maintaining connections, and ensuring knowledge, experience, and relationships are passed on rather than lost. Leadership should not restart with each new group. It should accumulate, become stronger, and even more impactful over time. Ultimately, the goal is lasting democratic impact. This means embedding youth leadership into how organizations and institutions function, so young people are constantly part of decision-making, not just occasionally invited. When systems are well designed, youth leadership becomes normal, expected, and structurally supported. Key takeaway: sustainability is not about keeping the same people involved forever, but about building systems that allow leadership to transfer, grow, and remain accountable. The final shift: not just asking how to participate, but how to evaluate, design, and improve the systems that shape participation itself. Let's look at a real example from Denmark, the annual Youth Democracy Festival, Ungdommens Folkemøde. It brings together thousands of young people, politicians, and organizations, but intentionally creates a space that challenges conventional ideas of how democracy is practiced. The innovation is Maker Zone, a designated area where young people can engage with democracy through hands-on, creative activities, rather than speeches and debates. Activities include sewing reusable sanitary pads while learning about menstrual health challenges in Uganda, creating protest signs for climate art installations, and making keychains from recycled plastic while connecting with Kenyan youth on climate and mental health. These are not merely craft workshops, they are deliberate exercises in democratic engagement. Through making and creating, young people explore global issues, express their values, and connect with peers across borders without stepping into a debate stage. Why this matters to our key themes. Not all power is visible. Maker Zone shows influence can be exercised through making, creating, and informal conversation. Power is not only in speaking, it's also in shaping what is discussed, how issues are framed, and who feels welcome to participate. Leadership is something you grow into by working with others. Young people lead by facilitating workshops and sharing skills, not holding titles. Leadership emerges through collaboration and practical knowledge and the willingness to guide others. Participation alone is not enough. The emphasis is on doing and creating, which builds democratic confidence through tangible action. Rather than simply being invited to a consultation, young people leave having produced something meaningful and experience their own agency. The project leader, Ellen Jacobsen, says, "We have room for those who think and speak, but we also have a need to hear from those who work on practical solutions. In Maker Zone, we transform theoretical knowledge into something you can actually get your hands on." A young participant, Victoria Hamerick, reflects, "It's become more of a cozy conversation where you don't have to talk too much about politics if that's not your thing." In a European context where youth disengagement is often framed as apathy, Maker Zone offers a different narrative. Young people are engaged, but on their own terms, through their own methods. Democracy is not about who speaks the loudest, but about who is invited to contribute and in what ways. Let's summarize what we have learned. Youth leadership is not a future promise, but a present practice, defined by influence and relational power rather than formal titles. While young people often possess the energy and capability to drive change, their participation is frequently undermined by systematic failures, short-term project cycles, burnout, tokenism, and unequal access. To be effective, leadership must be understood as a collective developmental practice shared across networks rather than concentrated in individuals. For participation to be meaningful, it must be embedded in sustainable systems that provide clear pathways, such as civic, political, and professional, alongside robust support structures like mentorship and networks. Ultimately, the sustainability of youth leadership depends on the intentional system design. It requires moving beyond tokenistic inclusion to ensure young people have real influence, continuity, and accountability. The goal is not merely to involve youth, but to build democratic systems where youth leadership is structurally supported, normalized across generations, and capable of creating lasting impact. Thank you for watching this final video of Rural 2.0 training. We hope these concepts help you build sustainable youth leadership in your community. Goodbye and good luck with your leadership journey. Together, we are building stronger rural communities across Europe.